just might. He's a maniac and he's a lunatic. They're getting desperate. The more risk they're going to take. Before we used to jump out of bed, look out the window, and then run to the bomb shelter. Now I don't do that anymore. The West is giving us 1 gun a day. We need 100 guns a day.
That's Nitish Pal, an Indian origin businessman who continues to live in Ukraine.
We know the Russians are not winning this war. We know they're not going to win this war. It's not going to happen. It's never in this lifetime. But they're getting desperate. And the more desperate they get, the more risk they're going to take, the more chances they're going to take. And he could just send on the 24th, bombard us from like he normally starts at 4 a.m. He likes to wake up people. He could go on. It's strange that he has like a time frame his generals work at. They work from 4 to 6 or 4 to 5, and after 5 in the evening, they don't do anything. I think they need to go home to their families. So it's strange, really. But this is their algorithm that they follow. So he might do that. They might just go all out. 50% of the people don't believe anything will happen. I didn't believe on the 24th last year that anything would happen. Having said that, you sort of don't, you can't say that he's not going to do anything. He just might. He's a maniac and he's a lunatic.
We last spoke with Nitesh nearly a year ago, soon after the Russian invasion began. A lot has changed since then, and a lot hasn't as well.
We've stopped being scared. I lived in my house till the war, when the war started, and then when the war kept going, as things developed, I now moved into an apartment because it's a lot more warmer, because I can't keep the house warm with generators all the time. So I just shut down everything and moved into an apartment. And from my apartment window, I sometimes can see our anti-missile, anti-rocket guns firing. You can see them, you can hear them. You get woken up at 3 a.m, 4 a.m. But before we used to jump out of bed, look out the window, and then run to the bomb shelter. Now I don't do that anymore. I just wake up, look out the window, try and catch one of the guns firing, and then go back to sleep. Because I don't know what else to do anymore. It's like it's become if you put your hands in fate at the end of the day. I think that's where I'm going now. Just going with the flow. I cannot tell you how many people are dying in Ukraine every day. I think that's wrong. The West is giving us 1 gun a day. We need 100 guns a day. We don't need 1 bullet every day. We need, cases full of bullets. And this is why every time we shoot 1 rocket over to the Russian side, they send back 100. They send back literally 100. And our soldiers, because of my racing, I service a lot of motorcycles now for free with a lot of the young army guys. They choose to ride bikes when the weather is going to get better again in about a month. They'll get on their bikes again. One of them is works in the morgue, and the stories he tells us and the kind of body counts we get every day, it's crazy.
Nitish admits that over a decade ago, he thought that Vladimir Putin was the best leader in Asia. He says the war has certainly changed how Ukrainians perceive Russians, and now nobody seems to want peace with Russia.
Ukraine and Russia had a lot in common, say 10 years ago. Since they started 2014, the invasion in Crimea, and Ukrainians have woken up to another reality where Russians don't look at us as equals. They look at us as inferior people, or people with a problem that they're trying to help us. This war has united Ukraine. I never thought we could be united, because we are Ukraine as a whole was very divided. There's the Russian-speaking community and the Ukrainian-speaking community. A lot of provocation came from the Ukrainian-speaking community, acting that Ukrainian was the only language that was to be spoken in Ukraine. But Ukraine, unfortunately, people have to understand, is a 2-language country. It's Russian and Ukrainian. And now this war has shown that the people who also speak Russian in this country love this country just as much as the ones who speak Ukrainian. In the start of the war, we were very angry with Russians. I have a lot of friends. Everyone in Ukraine has a lot of friends. Everyone in Ukraine has family. The Russians have family in Ukraine. There's a lot of divisions created between families and who's wrong and who's right. I think there will be a reconciliation of maybe 20, 30 years before we figure out that we can be friends again. I think we have started to realize that the Russians, citizens themselves, are not 100% to blame. We do blame them because they don't do anything, but we do realize that now. I've been talking to a lot of people, and a lot of intelligent people have left Russia. They've run away because if you open your mouth, you get put in jail. If you open your mouth, your parents will be put in jail for 10 years. So they have. It's a very it's a dictatorship that he's really brought down to serious consequences. And even in Belarus as well, the same thing. People are scared to open their mouth. So we can't point fingers and say to the Russians, why aren't you standing up against Putin? Because if they stand up against Putin, they get killed as well. They get their parents killed. I think we're starting to realize that in Ukraine, that there is another side to the coin.
Nitesh moved his family out of Ukraine after the war began. He hasn't brought them back yet.
I saw my kids in July for 4 days. I went to Turkey. I'm allowed to leave the country because I have 3 children under the age of 18. So I have a special red, I can show you, it's like a red book that allows me, and I'm free to move in and out of the country anytime. I did go to see my children. I can see them as many times as I want to, but I don't want to because I think it makes it harder.
But Nitesh also talks about a very different kind of new normal that exists in Ukraine presently.
So there is a kind of normalcy on an everyday basis in Kyiv, in Lvov, in the west of Ukraine. There is more of a normalcy, but with the air raids, when that comes in, the country stops. But when it ends, it goes back to normal again. Even movies, people are going to the movies now, and in the middle of a movie, the air raid sirens can come on, and you have to leave the theater and leave the building. So everyone leaves, goes out, waits like an hour or two, and then when the sirens are off, you never know when the Russians stop bombing. So it's not like when is the siren going to go off? It's like when the Russians decide, then it goes off. And if it's more than 2 hours, the film gets canceled and they say, come another day, free entry. So stuff like that goes on. People don't care anymore. They're standing outside eating their popcorn. This war has given people, they've started to care about each other. They've started to help each other. If when I'm driving, if I see somebody, stuck on the road or something, you stop now. Everybody stops now. Before, 1 out of 10 would stop. Now I would say 8 out of 10 people will stop in Ukraine to help each other. And that's amazing. This war has given people a lot of time to change their way they live, the way they think. They were very materialistic in Ukraine. And just like in Russia, everything is about, fancy cars and fancy clothes and fancy everything. People have taken a look at that again and decided that maybe we don't need to go that way in life anymore. It's not about, brands or not about fancy cars. It's about life. It's about living. So and we've learned to value life, I think, a lot more.